This video is going to show you some best practices for analyzing your biofeedback data once you gather it. So the screen we're looking at right here is my biofeedback data that I just recorded. And there's a couple of changes I'd like to make to help me do a better job recording. What we're ultimately going to do is we're going to be highlighting some of these bits and reporting them in the lab report. Starting with highlighting the heart rate for the baseline period. So one thing to remember is these big black bars here are indicating changes in conditions. And so between the two black bars, I would call this an epoch. It's a batch of data that had a certain condition attached to it. And to find out what epoch I'm in, I click on this little, it was a black diamond, and when I click on it, it becomes a red diamond. And up at the top, it indicates the name of this epoch. This is increasing sympathetic tone. If I go way over here and click right here, that's the beginning of my baseline period. So for your lab report, you're going to have to report certain bits of data. The default that BioPack leaves you with leaves a lot to be desired. So what we're going to do up here, delta T is a change in time. So it tells you how much time a certain epoch was. In order to highlight anything here, I need to go way over to the far right side of the screen and get from my arrow to my I-beam cursor. And then to highlight a swatch of data, I'm going to click and drag and then release when I'm done with that. And I've highlighted this little batch of data here. Now, this is going to be my first piece of data I need to report for the lab report. Notice I skipped this beginning bit where the heart rate was still coming online from, it needed a few beats to work with before it got everything put together. So I've done that, and I've highlighted pretty much close to where I want. I might even correct that a little bit more so I don't get any of the upswing of that. And I go just about to the black bar, and change in time really means nothing. We know that was a roughly 20-minute segment, 20-second segment, because we set our timer. So this doesn't tell me anything. Mean is very useful. That's the mean heart rate during my baseline period. Well, that's a batch of data that makes sense. So I'm going to keep that mean there. These calculated channels can be changed, and I'd like you to change that for this lesson. Instead of delta T, we'll click on the drop down. We'd really like to look at the minimum heart rate for this period. And so we must have included a 0 point in there because I get 0 beats per minute. That's really good feedback. So I probably dragged it too far into that black space where it started onto the next one. So be sure you don't drag so far that you're into the next epoch where it starts at 0 again, because it's waiting for 2 beats to calculate heart rate. So now I have some data. I've got minimum heart rate, I've got mean heart rate. Ideally, I'd like max heart rate. That's a more useful thing than P to P. P to P is peak to peak, which isn't anything useful with heart rate. That could be something maybe somewhere else we could do that. So instead of peak to peak, we're going to do a drop down here, and we're going to choose max. Now we have 3 very useful pieces of data. The minimum heart rate during that whole period, because it's calculating this for that whole blue highlighted segment I just did. The mean and the max, and you're going to report these values down for the baseline period. We're on the baseline epoch. Then when you need to move to the next epoch, you will click here, make sure you're on your parasympathetic tone. You'll skip this beginning bit where the heart rate is like 0, artificially so, because it just didn't have the beats to calculate it. Highlight this whole parasympathetic period, but not get too far into the black where we get to the 0 zone. And now we have a new round of data, minimum, mean, maximum. And we're going to continue on through our different epochs all the way through. Calculate these down, report these in your lab report, and then you'll have something useful to work with.